So when I was in year 12 and I was kind of like thinking about things to do or what to study, I was really interested in politics. When I was kind of picking what I'd like to do at uni, I did politics and law. And then off the back of that, my parents said like, it would be good if you did a double degree. Like that's how people get, good jobs these days. But when I did it at uni, I actually loved law more than I enjoyed politics. And I just thought it was so interesting. Like, I think, I tell people law is just such an interesting degree because it really ties in all the kind of social sciences. Like as an academic study, it's just a really interesting sort of pursuit. So that kind of really interested me into sort of keep going with law, even though initially it wasn't really something that I sort of set out to do. Now, in terms of actually like practicing law, it is a little bit different on the day-to-day than actually studying law. So, you can sort of go into a whole range of areas of law. The Perth market for, I guess, lawyers is, the industry is very sort of mining, construction based. So the type of areas that would be open to people are, you've got the family criminal, employment law, but then in terms of like the actual project scene, commercial side of things, it's very like construction and mining based. At university, I got a casual job working as an information officer at Legal Aid WA. I was a customer service officer. I was speaking to people that needed family or criminal law advice, and was giving sort of legal information relating to those areas. And I think certainly knew very quickly that those two areas was not what I wanted to do as a career. I think I certainly wanted a little bit more of a structured learning environment to start off my career. We have to do these things called clerkships, which in essence is like an internship. Essentially, all law firms sign up to this program, essentially, or the structure, and you do 4 to 12-week internships or clerkships at these law firms. And you apply, so applications open in July. You apply to all the firms at the same time. This thing called Offers Day. So that's essentially where all the firms give you a call kind of at the same time if they'd like to offer you an internship. And so the idea is that you can try and do as many as you can. After you've done those clerkships, if one of those firms offers you a grad offer, great. But then if you don't, then you start looking at applying for open market offers. So that's kind of how I got started. I got an offer from a firm called Herbert Smith Freehills. So that's kind of how I got to my current role at the moment. So I've been there for about 5 years now as a lawyer. So I did the grad program where you rotate through 3 different teams. So I started in corporate, I then went into finance and then commercial litigation, and then ultimately settled as a corporate M&A lawyer. Now, in short, no. I think, legacy law schools like UWA, Murdoch, they, a lot of the law firm partners and a lot of the very seasoned legal practitioners will come from those law schools. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is a bias from hiring from those law schools. Obviously, each firm's completely different. But I think at the end of the day, like what firms really care about, sometimes skills like, if you know how to use technology or you know how to speak a certain language, that also is really helpful. So those are the main factors, more than I would say which university you actually went to. Preparing for a clerkship is very much like that starts way before you actually submit an application. Good academics, definitely get good work experience. So unfortunately, some work experience is unpaid. And I think there is a little bit of a balance to make sure that you're not getting exploited. But leading up to clerkships, like make sure you try and sort of do a little bit of research with the firms. Like, a lot of times people just kind of have cookie cutter cover letters and CVs, and take the time to kind of reach out to somebody in that firm, in that office, and say, hey, what are the key transactions, the key clients that are in the Perth office? In terms of actually sort of doing your due diligence on a potential law firm, like I think it's very easy to be quite short-sighted. But I think the firm that you go to or like your first employer really kind of sets you up well. And that doesn't mean you can't, like I said, sort of make changes later on. But, if you're somebody that wants to maybe work internationally, or you're somebody that wants to go work in-house at a specific company, trying to find firms with an international reach, or firms that actually work with that specific company or client. If you're interested in other opportunities as well, like sort of career development and mentorship, I would ask those questions on your clerkship. But I think it's certainly a little bit more, it's just like less action. It's actually more granular and thorough. I guess it's just very little room for error in law. And so as a junior, you are very unlikely that you're going to court, very unlikely that you'll be standing in front of a judge. Like, I think when I say sort of granular and thorough, like, you're there, making sure that the research is accurate. You're there making sure that you're reading the cases and you understand what it is. So it's not as glamorous. And, a lot of the times you make sure that the documents look pretty. There's no spelling mistakes, there's no grammar mistakes. It's like consistency throughout the document. You're not actually sort of, in court. So I would say Suits is definitely very glamorized. And I think people sort of know that. But I do think there's an element of like, it's a marathon, not a sprint in law, where you just have to have really good attention to detail. Like, you're going to get fatigued on the matters that you're working on if they go on for long periods of time. Like, it's not as dynamic as people make it out to be on TV. And so you do need a little bit of like grit and resilience to get through a long career in law.